the Longhorns concluded their season 8-4. I guess we called it. I guess my question is, should I feel disappointed about it, happy about it? They reached their goal, but in many ways it feels like they didn't. I think the part of the trouble is because I watch these games, I watch each one of them, and I see the missed opportunities there. If you just told me after the season, let's say I went into a full-on coma, missed the entire college football season, woke up and you told me Texas was 8-4, I'd say, okay, Sark's got this team heading in the right direction. That's promising coming off the last year's 5-7 season. But the fact is, I know that there's the Texas Tech game. There's the TCU game where the offense couldn't score a touchdown. There's the Oklahoma State loss where you had a huge lead and you end up blowing that one. And then there's the Alabama game where Quinn Ewers is lighting them up in the first half and you lose that one by 1 point. So the fact that I know those games exist and were winnable games, I think is part of the disappointment, not so much the record, because I feel like the record is very independent of the expectations you would have for this team when you start listing off the names and the talent and the recruiting numbers and some of the things that usually result in success in college football. So there's some shortcomings I'm disappointed with, but overall 8-4. How do you think the Longhorns did this year?
They hit exactly the expectation I said. 8-4. You go, what is it? 5-3 in conference. That is exactly expectations for this season of a standard program. And I think part of your feeling, I'm just kind of like armchair psychologist. This thing is like, man, you wanted so bad to be wrong. You wanted so bad to have it be like, oh, we're 10-2 and we're building towards a playoff berth next year. You wanted it so bad.
I think part of it is I can look at USC and look at what they're doing, a 1-year turnaround, and suddenly they're talking about college football playoff over there. And I'm looking at second year Sark, and I'm looking at more of the slow, tedious rebuild where, yes, you have the star ratings that USC has, but you're not getting the results. Is it the competition? It doesn't feel like it's the competition because is Texas Tech that much different from what USC has to face in the Pac-12? No. So I feel as though the fact is you could see comparable coaches around the league, around college football, who are doing it at a faster pace, whereas Sark has a reputation that precedes him with his stops in Washington and USC respectively, and even his stop in the pros with the Atlanta Falcons as their OC.
See, here's the big difference is that USC's got a lot of money. You know, USC does have a lot of money.
Texas has a lot of money.
Texas does have a lot of money, but here's the thing. USC took that money and they spent it reportedly for over $2 million in NIL deals for Caleb Williams and $100 million on Lincoln Riley, a very strong, proven commodity. And they also got Jordan Addison for a reported 6 to 7 figure NIL deal. He was the wide receiver of the year as a sophomore at Pitt, playing with Kenny Pickett. He comes over. They got a running back from TCU whose name is slipping my mind, but he's had an incredible season so far. They got a top recruit from the local area at wide receiver as well. And their defense is fine. It's good enough. I can say no bad things about it. I can say very few good things about it. It's fine. Texas spent that money buying out Tom Herman, and Texas spent that money on Steve Sarkisian. There's a pretty distinct difference between Lincoln Riley and Steve Sarkisian. USC's getting what they paid for. Texas is getting what they paid for. And what Texas paid for is a monotonous 8-4, building this thing back up. And maybe in 3 years, you can get back to the same place Tom Herman got in 3 years, which was in year 3 or 4. Was it 3 or 4 that Herman went to the Sugar Bowl? Like, was that third year or fourth year Tom Herman?
I can't remember, but 3 or 4 sounds about right.
Yeah. So year 3, you're hoping you get back to that place. Because we know Tom Herman wasn't fired based on performance. Tom Herman was fired because they got like Urban Meyer eyes, and then they couldn't get Urban Meyer, and then they settled for plan B, which was Steve Sarkisian.
Now, I joked, obviously, leave Sark in Lawrence if they would have lost to Kansas this year. Obviously, they win that one. Leave no doubt in that one. They blow them out. But part of the reason, obviously, you don't make any rash decisions with Sark is because you know that Arch Manning is knocking on your door. So you want a difference maker at quarterback. You talk about what Caleb Williams has done for USC. In theory, you have that. We all believe, or more or less the majority of the media believes, that Arch Manning is going to be really good. People thought that Quinn Ewers was going to be really good, and he's had his moments. He had a down freshman year, but I guess if you really want to talk about like freshman year starters, like what do they really do? a guy like Sam Ehlinger had a rough freshman year, his first go round with the Longhorns, and had an excellent sophomore year. So you would maybe think, can Quinn do something similar next year? Does he have a breakout season in mind? Well, he's going to need it because according to Coach Sark, it's going to be open competition next year. Arch legitimately has a chance to win the starting job, and you would almost hope he does, in the sense that, well, if he is that dude, if he is going to be that dude, then it's just going to be obvious day one from the second he steps on that field.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're also looking at Quinn, who's a 5-star prospect himself, and you would say, well, if he's that dude, if he has that sophomore year jump ahead of him, then it's going to be obvious from the second he steps on the field next year. When we start talking about the scrimmages between the offense and defense, we're going to start seeing, obviously, Quinn Ewer's best qualities. So you have a good situation in the sense that you're going to have the quarterback depth, and that's something that Texas really hasn't had. They haven't had next guy lined up ready year after year. If you're able to pair up hopefully improved Quinn Ewers next year as a sophomore with Arch Manning the year after that, then you have something that's sustainable and you can keep building. And you talk about making it to Sugar Bowls, and you talk about the expansion in the college football playoffs, and you talk about this move to the SEC. There's a lot of opportunities to be had there. It's just a lot of pressure is going to fall on Sark to actually be able to take advantage of the opportunities he's going to be given with this team. You're going to lose Bijan this year in the draft. I know he's being very coy about whether he's going to actually depart from the draft or not. I think his agent's going to advise him to take that road to potentially being a first-round pick while it's there. So you're going to have to find something else there to move the offense. The Texas is going to have a very transformative offseason, so this team might look completely different than it does this current juncture in time. I just think when I look at the season, again, I'm just going to look at missed opportunities, and I look at the 5-7 year, and I look at missed opportunities. When will we start closing up these missed opportunities? That's the big thing for me. Start taking advantage of them, because that's what the good programs do. They don't leave any opportunities on the board. They seize it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the transformative part of the roster, because I think there's two big parts, because they're just the names that we know. I'm sure within the minutia, I'm not a Texas guy, so I can't name all the players on the roster. I don't know exactly what the turnover is going to look like, but if the big names are a byproduct of that, they want Arch Manning to take Quinn Ewers' job. That is what they are hoping for in an ideal circumstance, because that means he's immediately one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football. The second side of that is Xavier Worthy's a free agent. Xavier Worthy is a NIL free agent. He has scrubbed his Longhorn social media. He has scrubbed his social media of Longhorns content. He's going for the best offer. And if Texas can pony that up, he'll stay. And if not, he'll go somewhere else. So that's the nature of, you got 2 years of Xavier Worthy, played well. He's going to test and see what money he can get for what is probably going to be basically the equivalent of 3rd-round draft pick money as a junior. And that, like you said, it's going to be turnover. So if we want to go back and look at the year that was, obviously you don't like the Texas Tech loss. TCU loss, no shame in losing that one. Oklahoma State loss looks worse as the season goes along, but Oklahoma State's fall from grace at the end of the year is injury related. Like, the reason they get smoked by K-State, the reason they lose at home to West Virginia is injury related more than it is like they were a fraud at the start of the season. So I don't think you should feel bad about losing the Oklahoma State game, other than just having a big lead and giving it back, which Texas was bound for a couple of those during the season. So, there you go. It happened to be Oklahoma State.
That's part of the problem. That's part of the systematic problem but also, that you hope you correct.
That's just college football, man. That's just college. I know it's a Texas specific thing because you've been complaining about them giving back leads, even going back to the Herman last year. But that's just a college football thing, man. It was going to happen at some point because Texas is not a tier 1 or a tier 2 program yet. They're not a team that can just roll in as 7-point favorites and convincingly win every week. They're not that team yet. And they hope to one day aspire to be that team. So we'll see what the roster looks like. And maybe when we check in August or September next year, perhaps we'll have higher expectations than this 8-4 team from the season, because they hit the expectations. And by the way, they're probably going to go to the Alamo Bowl. If you told me at the start of the year Texas is playing in the Alamo Bowl, I'd say that's a successful season, no question. If they win 8 games and play in the Alamo Bowl, that's a big win for where that Texas program was losing to Kansas 12 months ago.
A lot of projections have them against Utah. obviously you'd like to win that one. You'd like to end the year on a strong note, get that 9th win of the season, get everyone feeling good heading into the offseason. If you do end up facing Utah, obviously they're a tough team. They're an established team. Kyle Whittingham, we know what their style is. I wouldn't expect Texas to be the favorites in that game. However, more or less have a home field opportunity, or at least you're the closest one to the venue. So hopefully they could take advantage of that. But Texas, how'd they do this year? Did they meet your expectations? Did they exceed them? Did they fall short? Are you still pissed off about the Texas Tech loss? Let us know below in the comment section. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social media accounts. From Juju and Kyle here, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.